Hello everyone, this is TheNelston. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm here with a new episode of the Hardcore Rebirth of the Night playthrough. Before I started this video, I just wanted to give a quick shout out and thank you to all of the people who have supported the previous episodes. It really means a lot to me, and I honestly didn't expect my videos to blow up this much, but I mean, here we are now. So again, thank you guys so much for the support, and I really hope that I'm putting out some content that you guys actually enjoy. I don't really have anything else to say besides that you should join my Discord. It's a really great time. And you know, it's very chill there, so yeah, you should check it out. Alright, that's going to do it for the intro. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the video. See you guys soon. I started off day 11 by exploring this interesting dungeon, we'll call it. Of course, I did what any good looter does and went through and systematically took every single valuable item from this place. With the place completely burglarized, I headed back to stash away the goodies. One of the long-term goals of the series is going to be to make enough ammunition that the NRA looks like a kiddie club. While I was out exploring, I found this little pony and did a quick dance with him before taking him home for his own safety. I think I'm going to call him Tony Thickums because he blocked my entire first-person view. After topping off my food supplies and grabbing some building blocks, I was off to go build a very big project. I'll give you a hint. You remember that dungeon that I found in the last episode that I raided? You know, with the skeleton and spider spawners? But first, a quick break to grab a new friend. Man, how many friends do I have at this point? I'm literally a social warlord. Then it was right back to my old stomping grounds, the Ice Village. After all, I still had some unfinished business down here. First, I had to check in on my favorite organ dealer. Fortunately, he was still buying bones of suspicious origin without any questions asked. I think you've probably guessed by now, but my plan was to build a mob spawner grinder. I'm not going to go too in depth about what I'm doing here. But simply put, mob spawners will try to spawn mobs every couple seconds in a 9x9x3 area, so that's length, width, and height. So my goal is just pretty simple: clear out a 9x9x3 area for the mob spawner to spawn mobs in, have a water flushing system that'll put all the mobs into a single kill area, and then of course grind away to my heart's content. Hopefully that explanation was sufficient. If you still have any questions, feel free to go leave them down in the comment section below. Or you should go check out this El Mango video, which goes in depth about all the mechanics of the mob spawner, and specifically, it explains why I chose a skeleton spawner. Before I seriously started on construction, I needed to clear out a small area so that I could store all my stuff. You smell that? I think it's time for another building montage. This time to some old school RuneScape music. Hope you guys enjoy. Alright, we're back and the shell is now done. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that short little musical interlude. I really like bringing back music from my childhood because it's just really nostalgic and the music is just so good. Like the songs from the games that I used to play. Anyways, I'm getting off track here. I needed some extra tin for buckets, so I decided, you know what, we may as well add a smelting station to this area. Can I just say that that sound is one of the most satisfying things I've ever heard? Like, it just sounds so good, man. I don't know. With the buckets crafted, I resurfaced real quick to grab some water. The goal here is to create an 8x9 stream of water that pushes everything that spawns into a single tiny canal. With that out of the way, I started construction on the 2-deep water channel. Let's go ahead and waterlog it. Now, I'm no George Bush, but I needed to make sure to enhance my interrogation methods a little bit if I wanted maximum drop rates from these skeletons. With my first generation vertical gitmo now completed, I turned off all the torches inside the spawning area and waited for my suspected enemies of the state. This was a pretty big disaster because the skeletons just climbed up the scaffolding right after they spawned, which was, a little bit annoying. I then tried this system where the skeletons were killed before they fell down, but it didn't work. After a while I decided, you know what, screw it, we're just going to funnel them into a single kill area and call it a day. Damn, these skeleton norms got hands. After a few small tweaks, everything was ready to go. It was time to harvest more ill-gotten organs than the CCP. As you can see, the system was very effective, so I went ahead and did some business with the local anatomy professor. I tried to get home that night, but it turned out to be quite stormy. No Daniels. I tried to fight my way through the mobs, but I ended up getting splashed with poison by a witch, so I had to rocket jump my way out of there. I can't rocket jump in TF2, but at least I could do it in Rebirth. This was absolutely the most scary experience I'd been in so far, because even with my Totem of Undying activating, the poison would slowly whittle down my health, and if a mob touched me, it was game over. I didn't stop running until I got inside the house safely and just sat there and waited. Can you please let me out of the house?
Nope.
The only thing the player has to lose are its chains. After that whole ordeal, I crafted up some temporary weapons and went back down into the grinder to grab some bones and XP.
Don't ask questions, just consume product and then get excited for next products.
I first went back to drop off some of the goodies that I had attained the night before, and then set out on a journey to a new place. I'm not sure if you remember my first episode, but I'm bringing up this screenshot because of that right there. That told me that there was a village nearby, and I had completely missed that, so I went back to these coordinates right here. The idea was pretty simple, just look around the area and see if I can find a village. Of course I got distracted by the structure right here because who would TheNelston be without constant distractions? Almost got executed by a mechanical firing squad. Fortunately, I have matrix level reflexes. Honestly, the loot was really lackluster, but gunpowder is super difficult to come by, especially early on, so it wasn't too bad. Alright, time to get on my way. I sure hope nothing bad happens to me on this beautiful day. After a little bit more traveling, I was finally able to relocate the jungle temple, and sure enough, there was the icon. I figured the village would be across the river because I checked around the area of the temple and hadn't found anything. So I rode across, and what do you know, there's actually a village, right there. While most of the villagers had pretty bad deals, this guy actually gave me quite a bit of leather. Please tell me how to tame a ferret because oh my god, that thing is adorable. With nothing better to do, I decided to go commit some more felony burglaries. And I found this cute little guy. Please give me some good names down in the comment section. Screw that guy, knowledge should be free anyways. While looting this guy's house, I accidentally punched him and my dog went to town. Finally, I was able to locate a Fletcher. This was great because now I could start selling useless crap for emeralds. So I grabbed an axe and got to work deconstructing some of the outskirts of the town. Now it's time for some thick profits. Alright, time to reverse engineer some of the town, and by reverse engineer I mean unengineer. Jamie realized that my sticks were obtained through illegitimate means, so he didn't actually buy that many. I really wanted to head back during the night, but unfortunately I just couldn't find my reindeer, and while it was both raining and dark, I decided it would just be best to sleep it off for the night and hope that I had better luck in the morning. Started the day off by taking Mary Antoinette's advice. Then, of course, it was off to swindle the king. I really couldn't find my reindeer, so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna make the trek home by foot. It's not too far anyways, and it was good to get some exercise. As I headed back, I found a myrmid's den. I would definitely have to take note of this. Myrmidses can apparently be tamed, and even if you don't want to tame them and you just want to kill them, there's also an achievement for that. I got back and dumped all of my loot into the chest. I decided to then spend the rest of the day looking for a new reindeer. If my reindeer wasn't going to come looking for me, I was going to just go look for one of its new brethren. Of course, I went in the complete opposite direction and ended up getting lost. I wonder if I've been in this situation before. It was dark that night. Really dark. but I was still able to barely make out the outlines of blocks in front of me, and miraculously, I made it home without getting killed. I had also found a star on the way back, so I decided to go smash it at the stone anvil to get some magic powder. I then used this kind of dirty trick to dupe my magic powder. I don't know if this is considered like cheating or not. I guess it could be. Feel free to let me know and I can like reset from this point if you want, but I personally felt as though this was fine because leather is really expensive to get. It's really useful for a lot of things like backpacks and all that stuff, so to me it felt like it was a fair trade. But if the consensus is that this was cheating, feel free to let me know down in the comment section and I'll gladly throw away all the items that I got from doing this. I used the magic powder to craft up some of the important ingredients to make my enchantment table.
Knowledge.
As I was doing a routine patrol, I noticed that there was a small hole in my walls. This is when I started realizing that I needed to buff up my defenses or else things would get really ugly in later game stages. As I was fixing things up, I started to think about an idea that I had but didn't put into action yet. I decided to mull over it in bed and fell fast asleep. Day 16 and the hunt for the reindeer still continued. I located a herd right next to the ice spikes where I'd originally found them and grabbed one that seemed, pretty healthy and pretty fast and took him home. I decided to drop a marker on the map just in case I needed to rob Santa again. With that out of the way, I wanted to go check out the cave that I'd looked at earlier but never bothered to go explore. As I looked around, I found a bunch of shiny, precious blue stones. Yeah, look at that, free ender pearl. As I dug out a side path, I found this nice lava lake which was perfect because I needed 3 obsidian to get my enchantment table. Breaking obsidian is honestly so insanely satisfying, especially when you don't have an efficiency pick. Like, it just takes so long, but it just feels good. With the last piece of the puzzle completed, I made my enchantment table and started setting up an enchanting area and got to work. I then spent a bunch of time grinding out mobs, adding levels to my pickaxe and going back to grind more mobs, and then suddenly I checked the enchantments and... With a useless pickaxe, I had to go back into the mines to grab some diamonds to make a new one. Fortunately, this one had fortune on it, so that was nice. Alright, back to grinding. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Today was going to be fully dedicated to finishing up my Better with Mod setup. But first, a quick ASMR break. The first thing that I needed was a lot of hemp. Up to this point, my farm had been very efficient at producing a passive income of hemp, but now that I needed a lot, I just had to manually bone meal it. And just like that, we made enough for 6 entire wind sails, which was way more than I needed. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I started using the Farmer Life set to save on food, and I made some bandages to recover health in sticky situations. I did so much microcrafting I felt like I was playing Tekkit all over again. The good old days with modular power suits. Of course, if I wanted to make anything substantial with the Better with Mod setup, I needed a lot of wood. Hope you guys enjoy old school RuneScape ASMR. Sustainability is apparently really good because it speeds up the rate at which trees fall. I have 8 kids in my basement, don't come look. I was getting full mooned tonight, so I decided, you know what, let's make some lunar bathwater. But first, back to grinding skeletons. I was trying to clear out the chest using auto sort, but for some reason it ended up giving me an achievement that I really didn't want. After a long while of grinding, it finally turned day, so I decided to take all the stuff that I'd gathered from the night before and head back up to my base. By the time I resurfaced, it was already quite late into the day. It's kind of like that feeling you know when you wake up at like 2 or 3 p.m. and you're like, holy crap, the day's already almost over. God, that never gets old. As I was crafting some dispensers, the Fed suddenly raided my base, and fortunately this didn't really turn out like a Ruby Ridge. But now I knew that one of my top priorities had to be reinforcing my base. Otherwise, the next invasion that came would be disastrous. Now that the ATF wasn't after me, I decided to illegally expand my clip size by creating a golden quiver. Then it was right back to the village to stock up on some more leather. It's kind of felt like that scene in Androids, you know, where Deckard's talking about like baby hide. What were these villagers doing with all this rotten flesh? Well, let's just hope that none of them are named Sweeney Todd.
Hey, nice cock, bro.
Tonight was invasion night, so you know what that means. With the invasion finally out of the way, I could go back to focusing on better with mods. I did a really cool skip here, which basically lets me get glue before I even get a stoked cauldron, so if you're interested in seeing more about that and why it's useful, definitely check out the video in the eye icon right now. Alright, time to set up the better with mod stuff. I hooked up a millstone to a windmill right away so that I could get tan leather without having to pull a hand crank. With the leather now processing, I went outside and worked on getting some charcoal. With the leather done, I decided to process some hemp. I started processing some hemp here. It's not really the best system right now because obviously the items just kind of spit out everywhere, but I'm hoping that I can eventually set up a more efficient collection system. Of course, before I get a sawmill, I needed to get wood bark by hand. The charcoal was finally complete. Now I could set up my better with mods cauldron. The great thing about charcoal is that it burns indefinitely, so even before going to the nether, you can have an indefinitely burning cauldron. After setting up the cauldron and lighting the fires underneath, it was time to get cooking. Using the tan leather I just cooked, I made a sawmill so I could progress further with better with mods. With the saw now active, I started producing some siding and molding. The siding was going to be useful for a turntable as well as the water mills, and the molding was going to be useful for a wind chime. Wind chimes are super useful because they automatically turn off windmills whenever it's rainy or stormy. Whenever it's rainy or stormy, the windmill will spin too fast and break all attached mechanisms. As soon as it turned nighttime, I raced back to the mob grinder to put the final few levels onto my pickaxe. I've always really liked tetragrams, so playing with the Cork Oddities enchantment system is just a lot of fun. Using my new pickaxe was just so satisfying, like I could break through obsidian like butter and duplicate my diamonds. Of course, this also meant that if I died, oh wait. Using the diamonds I collected, I made a diamond helmet and a diamond chestplate. Then, of course, it was back to the enchantment grind. After a long night, it was too late to enchant, so I decided to grab all the valuables I'd mined from the night before and head back to my base. As I headed up, I could really tell that winter was upon us. You could just see the snow everywhere, lakes were freezing up, and all the crops had started to die off. Food was going to become exceedingly scarce, but fortunately I did have the farmer life set to get me through some tough times. It was then back to the village to do some more trading, and along the way I almost died yet again. As you can tell, I'm just so good at this game. This merchant was actually going to be super useful because he sold totems of undying. I made a lot of bank today.
I take what's mine and take some more. It rains, it pours, it rains, it pours.
Just had to take a quick moment to look at all the progress I made today. Heading back to base was a surprisingly grueling journey as I got back rather late into the night. Then, of course, you know exactly where I went. But first I had to feed the homeless, but this growth sprite was just too good for my acorns, I guess. As I was grinding XP and leveling my armor, I realized I'd made a massive mistake. My helmet had blast protection on it, my chestplate had lunar shield. This was just terrible. I got two utterly worthless enchantments and just, oh man. I didn't really know what to do at this point. I had just spent 13 diamonds making armor and it turned out to be completely useless. Because the thing is, I didn't want to trigger the mid-game armor stage, and so I was planning to wear like a mix of iron and diamond armor with prot on it, but it just didn't work out that way, so I decided to grind levels for the rest of the night to at least get my health up a little bit. Did a quick daytime check, and of course it was light outside, so I headed up. I'm gonna be honest, even as I do this voiceover, I don't really know what to do. Like, I'm still thinking about what my options are because, you know, I'm in a pretty bad situation right now. Regardless, day 21 had arrived.